About journalists and their engagement with social media for a while, because I've had people, make some comments to me and say, I already know the inclination of these journalists, because by their posts on Twitter or on Facebook, they'll always bash either government or bash opposition, irrespective. It is not objective. So in stories, there's that standard expected that you'll be objective, you'll give both sides of the stories. But we seem to forget and put that cap of journalists down when some go on social media, and the vitriol sometimes you'll see out there, gloves off, it's on. Should that happen, Clay? Should we ever get to a point that, of course I have my leanings as an individual, everyone does, but should that of a journalist be coming out on social media especially?
I think this one is it's it's difficult to tackle, because we need probably media houses, individual media houses need to have something called their own social media policies to guide them. Because I know, I think there's a female journalist who was fired from CNN or was let go because of a tweet about somebody who had been some terrorist or stuff like that. Jim Clancy was also let go a few months ago or a few weeks ago. So it depends on what is the social media policy. I think that one, we should look at it that way. And I wish our online editor was here, then he could have talked about it, because I remember one time I used to tell him that what we need to do is probably, if let's say you work here and all your tweets should be in line either with the social media policy, then we get to that level where probably we attach the name of the station to your Twitter handle, like Wanuna KTN. I think CNN does it, I think BBC also does it, and other media houses also do it. So there is no time that this is the private Sophia and this is the official.
Yeah, because I find it, this thing they put on profiles, people that my retweets or whatever don't necessarily reflect those of my employer. I'm like, the minute it's on your, you've tweeted it or posted it.
It's escapist.
Yeah, it's escapist.
It is escapist, yeah. Though, I mean, we have our prejudices and stuff like that. But I think when it comes,
there should be policy.
There should be something like a social media policy.
Okay.
Yeah. So that in the event that probably you have overstep or you have problems either with the authorities and all that, then there's a way that your employers or the media house can defend you. Right. But you see, if you just throw yourself out there, then there's no way they can ever defend you, because the social media policies, I think, they differ from every media house.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I said earlier that as a journalist, you are a leader, and that comes with certain responsibilities. You shape public opinion whether you want it or not, whether you're intentional about it or you're not. People will look at what you're posting on social media, not because of you, the private person, but because of Sophie, for example, the media personality. They look at Clay's postings they will not separate the private Clay from the Clay the journalist. Everything that he posts is interpreted from the lens that the audience got introduced to him, and that is because he is a journalist. That's because they read his work. And so we really have to be careful about what is it that we are saying, and what does that speak of in terms of who we are, and what our biases are. And I usually say that journalism is a calling, because you leave everything aside. You have certain biases, you have certain prejudices, but you cannot bring them to bear, because the public has such high regard for whatever you say, so much so that you're going to sway the direction on various issues. So you more or less lay your life for the service of those that you're working for, and that's the public, that they have, that you're there to be able to serve their interests, and whatever it is that you're posting, whether it is in your private spaces, whether it is on social media platforms, you cannot separate it from who you are as a practitioner.
Okay, and I guess it would be hypocritical of journalists to expect our leaders to have a certain way they behave in public, yet we now want to do something different when it comes to separating what we do. You remember the case of Keter, and one of the reasons why it hit the headlines is because as a leader there's some language and demeanor that is expected out of him. So as journalists, I guess it would be hypocritical of us to want them to do that, but at the same time we can, on our private social media, do whatever we like or whatever we want.
Yeah, I think, also it also calls for individual responsibility, because yes, you can have that social media policy at the workplace, but also it boils down to individual responsibility, because you can still have that and you decide to be responsible. So sometimes also, I personally, there's so many times that actually I delete a tweet so many times, because first of all, because of two reasons. Because I want the grammar to be correct.
There's nothing as wrong as that, is there? Yeah.
And then also because I want just to be politically correct. By politically correct, not because I want to favor, but I just want the language to be palatable out there, you see. So there's sometimes when actually I write and then I just delete until I feel like, okay, fine, this is probably good enough. See. But I think also there's so much euphoria, there's so much excitement over this social media thing in this country that if you were to probably come up with social media policies, and I'm not calling on the government to start clamping down on the government media. If you're to come up with that, there's so many other people who start saying like, oh, the media talks about they want freedom, but now they're curtailing on the freedom of their own journalists, So it's a double-edged sword, but I think we need to have a middle ground. And having said that, also what is happening is that because that excitement is that there's so many things to do with information technology and also new media in this country that we don't have laws to back them up. Just to give you an example, just yesterday, the Indian Supreme Court struck out a section of the Information Technology Act which was criminalizing posts on Facebook, on Twitter, and on other, even comments. Let's say somebody writes a story
and you comment.
One of the people who was arrested is that somebody, a Facebook user, attacked some guy, and then what this person did was to like. So section 66A of that act was actually struck down by the Supreme Court yesterday, the Indian Supreme Court. But you see, at least they had an Information Technology Act. What do you have?
Okay, so there needs to be some legislation guiding that, but a thin line as well.
When it comes to all this information technology and all that, we don't have. There's a law that actually, which was a part of the media-related laws, which has never been passed. I think it's Data Protection Act or something like that. There's so many others that have never been passed. So we have all these things to do with mobile telephony. We're just trying to put things in place, and we don't have legislation in place yet.
Okay.